to have, we're so happy to have many of our current Acton learners here, Acton parents, prospective Acton families, and Acton staff here with us tonight. Before we begin, a quick request. Can you please keep your cameras on? These conversations are so much richer when we can see each other's faces and we can feel like we're all in the same room together rather than feeling like we're just passively observing a webinar. Acton is a really tightly knit community of learners, and we really want to connect with you tonight and have everyone feel like they are connecting. We do, I think, Carmen, do you mind explaining about the captions?
Sí, que si quieren pueden activar los subtítulos, pero solamente van a aparecer en inglés. Pueden tratar de ponerlos en español, pero no siempre funciona. En las funciones abajo, en la barra de abajo, donde dice Show Captions o mostrar subtítulos, ahí lo pueden activar.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I was saying before, if you we're going to answer tonight questions that people put in the registration link. But if you have more questions during the charla, just put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the session. So let's begin. For those of you who don't know me well, I'm Shannon Falkenstein, co-founder with Carmen of Acton Academy El Salvador. Our own Acton story began because we wanted something different for our children, not just a school that would prepare them academically, encourage them to memorize key information and perform well on tests to get into a great university, but a place where they could become capable, curious, independent, and deeply responsible for their own lives, and that they would fulfill the mission to go on a hero's journey and find a calling to change the world in a profound way. We really wanted our children to do something incredible with their lives, not just do the status quo. So this year is especially meaningful for us because we will have our first Acton Academy El Salvador graduate after 10 years. That's actually Jose Eduardo, who is Carmen's son. He's so busy doing all of the things that he does in his senior year at Acton that he actually can't be here tonight. So we're recording it so that he can check it out. But we're really excited about that. And the question of what happens after Acton is no longer theoretical for us. It's very real, it's very close, and we're very, very excited about it. So we're really super emocionada, super excited to host this conversation with River Tompkins. River is an Acton graduate who has lived the journey that we talk about so often. The studios, the apprenticeships, the independence, the uncertainty, the failure, the responsibility learned from that, his next great adventure, and the transition into life after Acton. River, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I can't wait to hear everything that you have to tell us. To start, would you briefly introduce yourself, share with us your Acton story, and tell us about what you've been doing since your graduation? Oh, yes, I can unmute you.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. I could talk a little bit about my acting journey and I'll try and keep it pretty short. I started acting at 8 years old, so about 10 years ago, second or third grade. And the Discovery Studio Elementary Studio was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed day-to-day life, made a lot of great friends there. And I think that studio built a lot of strong fundamentals for me that I would utilize later in acting, right? Just small skills that got built up every single day, right? Independence, learning to love learning, confidence, all of this stuff. You didn't see any crazy spikes, but it was the foundation for what would happen in middle school, high school, the next great adventure. And again, just a very enjoyable time to be at Acton. So I really, really am thankful for my time in Discovery. It went by pretty seamlessly. Then I went into middle school, which is where it got a little harder, right? That first year of middle school was certainly a struggle, and I think it was for most people because you're just given so much more independence, so much more freedom, and given that choice of what are you gonna work on? Are you gonna work at all? You have to learn how to manage yourself, not procrastinate. And those first couple sessions, I certainly failed the test, fell behind a little bit, but thanks to Acton, I was able to see the mistakes I was making, right? Understand, hey, I actually have to my work, and then I get to play, and then I have all these good rewards. And then from then on, caught up and was able to finish middle school a little bit early. Middle school was also when I began a little bit of the NGA process, mainly eighth grade and middle school. And at the time, I was enamored with football coaching. I really wanted to be a football coach, so I got an apprenticeship with
Is
a
this
local
American football?
American football. Yes, yeah, not soccer. And then so I got an apprenticeship with a local high school team, being on the coaching staff. Great real world experience, as well as wrote for a football magazine on pursuing the NGA. So that's a glimpse of middle school. And then I took those lessons learned from middle school, the skills built in elementary, and the high school, and was ready to go. Safe to say, freshman year. Now that I'm looking back on it, was squandered just a little bit of staying at that status quo, like you mentioned, Shannon. I did another apprenticeship with a football team, and I didn't fall behind in core skills, but I also didn't do anything exceptional, I'd say. So freshman year is one of my biggest regrets of Acton. Sophomore year, so that's second year of high school, completely changed. Very strong reversal in that I said, hey, I'm here at school. I'm going to try and get as much done as I possibly can. So I powered through our core skills, and in that one year, finished all of high school core skills. Right, so sophomore, junior, senior, really with only a little bit of homework, but just core skills, very focused. And then I did an apprenticeship that year. My NGA was kinesiology, so sports therapy, rehabilitation. It's
Let
very
me
interesting.
let's pause there real quickly because I think a lot of people probably don't know what the NGA is. Will you just say what does that acronym stand for and what does that mean in Acton Academy?
Yeah. NGA means next grade adventure. And you could almost think of it as an elective, just an elective that we place a lot of importance on. And the whole idea is exploring what's that next step after school. And it's reflecting, what do I want in life? What kind of freedoms, what life do I want to live? And then how do I obtain that? And so a lot of NGA throughout high school is planting a stake of saying, I'm going to be a football coach, for example, not committing to it for 20 years, but going out, testing it, living it, seeing what it's like. And then for me deciding, hey, I actually don't want to be a football coach. So it's like it's a very an elective that we put a lot of importance on, with that can have a lot of gain.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so sophomore year kinesiology apprenticeship, that was my NGA. And similar to football, after doing the apprenticeship, after talking to people in the field, realized this was not for me, and scrapped it. So I'm glad I did, because it saved a lot of time, saved a lot of money. And so that year, lots of core skills done, as well as apprenticeship, which means going into my next year, my junior year, there was no core skills requirement, nothing that I was required to do, nothing I had to do. And at the time, I really wanted to go to college, wanted to go to the best college that I could. So I had this whole year open to basically make my transcript as good as possible, be at a competitive level. And so instead of doing con or core skills while everyone else was taking college courses, AP credits, and which is an American test, and anything I could do to build up my college resume, which includes next grade adventure and apprenticeships. So this is the year I did an apprenticeship with Jimmy Blacklock, who was a Texas Supreme Court judge and is actually now the head, like the most important judge on the Texas Supreme Court. And that was incredible experience. Got to see the law chambers, what work on a case, right? He gave me a case and I studied it for a month or two and then watched it get argued in front of me. So very cool experience. Great letter of recommendation. Very good for college overall. So that was junior year, heavy college focus, and then leads to senior year, which again, there was no thing I had to do. There was no requirement. So it was very free, very open. And I finished my college applications. And at this point I decided I really wanted to travel, wanted to see the world. And through a whole story, I figured out acting was the best way to do that. So many campuses could utilize my experience, and it's a great network of people, really wonderful. I think it's 26 countries, 300 something campuses, so certainly a broad network. And so that's when I started going around to schools in Texas, then schools in Florida, spending a month in Brazil, which I really enjoyed, going to Peru. And yeah, it was just a really amazing senior year. I got to spend time with friends, travel, and yeah, it was a very nice senior year, one I'm very glad of. And then I graduated. I graduated in June and kept going on the same path of working with Actons because each time I have more experience, so I can get paid more, it can bring more value. In the last year, I've spent in total 10 weeks in New Zealand. I've gone there twice. Gone to Romania and a couple European Actons. Been all over America at this point, right? Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, lots in California. I spent a month in Curacao, which was lovely. Acting Kuala Lumpur, and now I'm back in Brazil. So basically, I've been, it's a gap year, been able to travel while making a profit, meeting all these people, and having plenty of time.
So let me interrupt you there. So, but some of our parents might be imagining, oh, so 12th grade, I'm just paying for my child to go all over the country and enjoy himself. Did your parents pay for all this travel, or how did that work?
No, I financed it all. Usually through work with the other campuses, through scholarships or some money I had from working a job. And, for the record, I did get a discount from our campus in that final year because we had that same talk with them of, should I really pay full tuition if I'm going to be there 30% of the year? So we did have that talk. Yeah, so I've been able to travel and have a lot of free time to continue my studies, which I find very important. Over the last year, I've done 5 AP tests, which I think is similar to IB for international. And, if I do well on these tests, it'll earn college credit. I think it's a lot of really useful information. I'm trying to learn Portuguese. I've learned somewhat how to code and read many, many, many books. So it's been a very good opportunity to travel, learn all the while not going into a ton of debt. And yeah, so that's where I'm at now. Do you want to share my plans for the future or go into questions?
I I think I'm so curious, like, tell me about the college thing. Like, have you decided like you're not gonna go, or but you also said gap year? Tell us about the future.
So I was, yeah, accepted into college and I ultimately chose University of Michigan, the business school there, and deferred it for a year, which is why I'm on the gap year. And yeah, now I'm definitely more hesitant to go back, right? I'm really enjoying this year, enjoying the independence, and um, I've had the success, so I want to continue that. But right now, the plan is to go back in August, start August as a freshman, and see where it goes from there. I think there's a strong possibility of dropping out after that first or second year, but I really have to see how it is.
And to do what? What do you think you might do if you drop out?
Well, that's a good question. Entrepreneurship is a very obvious answer. Acton's, especially my campus, it was a central part of it. I'm starting a business right now, which I hope will become big in the future and be a pretty stable source of revenue. Have a couple more ideas. Maybe I'll find someone in Michigan to co-found some with. I think I could keep working within Acton's and elevate my role to a more and more standard position. I also have a very big passion for writing, both novels and shorter 5 something page essays, and that's much harder to monetize, but it's something I hope to do over this next year in college. And if it works out, it works out. So those are, I say, the three main routes other than college, right? Because especially I'm in a very good business school in Michigan, and it's a direct pipeline into finance, consulting, accounting. So I'm very have a very good fallback job right there.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. So would you consider yourself to be an outlier at Acton, having finished early, gone through ups and downs, opted, gotten into great colleges, but opted out to do something a little different? Do you feel that you're an outlier or an exceptional Acton student, or do you feel like many Acton students in the world are similar?
I'd certainly say I'm an above average acting student, right, in terms of core skills and motivation, but I wouldn't say it's this anomaly, right, this extreme outlier. When you talk about getting into good colleges, that's, at least at our campus, it's a staple. It's very, very routine. Um, and I know across the network for graduates, the majority choose not to go to college, and a lot of them have lined up these other opportunities for themselves. A lot have been able to travel throughout Acton's. I know Kiera was just at yours, and Ingrid was just at our campus, and there's a lot of travel there. So I'd say, you know, I do think I'm above the average in core skills, ability, and motivation, but not an extreme outlier.
Thank you. So I'm taking these a little bit out of order, but because we're talking about university, when many parents, especially in the admissions process, they are very concerned about, are you preparing my child for university? Are you preparing my child for university? We come from this traditional system where college, university is like the next step and it's unquestionable and that's just what you do. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be successful. Like that's the myth, right? So would you say that that is the best question for parents to be asking about their children, or do you think there are even better questions?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think there's definitely some validity to it, right? College is it's a certainly a safe option, and getting into a good college is a good next step, right? It does help in the future. I think a very good question is more so, what are they going to do that's going to be unique or stand out? Um, or I guess, be individual, because at least in the States, college admissions are a brutal process where you just have millions trying to get into these colleges and very little differentiates them. So we say you need a hook for that. You need something that will stand out besides grades or test scores, because at this point everyone has grades and test scores. And so, like you said, I don't think college is the end all of all, and you can absolutely make it without it. But if college is the option you're looking for, it almost feels like Acton's the better option, because it gives you a chance to build these unique opportunities that are going to help for college, right? Like my grades or testing probably wasn't anything abnormal for a good college, but what was the leadership opportunities that I had, the apprenticeships, the letters of recommendation, the experiences, all of which that I had on school time and were helped by Acton. So I think it's, yeah, about how can you create an individual original experience.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, we were talking about one of the most powerful parts of Acton is the NGA program, the Next Great Adventure, which challenges learners to find their next adventure after high school, which may be university, may not be, maybe the career they choose forever, their forever career, or maybe something like you said, where they try and say, this is not for me, which I think is just as important as finding out what is for you, is going through a lot of things that are not for you. I think a lot of adults, myself included, went to school, didn't really know who we are, what we wanted, chose a career, and then later we're like, wait a minute, is this it? Is this really what I want to do? And then changed. And I think this would have been a very valuable process. But can you tell us more about the NGA and how that is differs from traditional high school and how that impacted you personally?
Sure. Well, I think an obvious impact is, like you just stated, in the narrowing the region of darkness of the future, because there are all these possibilities, and the NGA kind of helps to bring that in as well as illuminate that. It started with football coaching. I don't want to be a football coach. And then there was kinesiology, which I would have had to go to a 4-year university, go to 2 years of schooling after that just to enter the field. 6 years, lots of debt. And I was able to, in my sophomore year, realize this isn't for me. I don't want to be close to people or touching people or any of that kind of stuff. It's really just not the profession for me. And I lost 40 hours on the apprenticeship compared to 6 years. But then I'd even say that I didn't lose 40 hours there because it was still experience, right? Everything kind of correlates in a way. You do this job or learn from this person, and it'll apply across many fields. So I think you just learn a lot by actually doing, actually being in the real world. And a lot of people say, that's the best classroom. And that's what the NGA is all about, is just taking a step into the real world, meeting real people, doing those kind of things. And you can't exactly mark down what it teaches you. I just know that it does teach me. And yeah, so I'm happy for the lessons learned. I'm happy for the confidence boost, because it is a lot of scary stuff, right? Emailing someone or going into an interview. It's not easy stuff, especially at the launchpad age. And the first one is very difficult. The first one, you make mistakes, but you kind of build up that ability, learn to fail. And by the time you're out of high school, it's like you're 30 years old, right? You've built up all that experience, but you're just coming out of high school.
I love that. And I think this is so key to Acton, how the way that you're talking about things is doing a cost benefit analysis and also negotiating, like negotiating with Austin West saying, listen, I'm only going to be here 30% of the year, so I'm negotiating my tuition. Talking about how you're going to spend 40 hours to get 6 years of experience, to make a decision rather than 6 years of experience. I've heard you talk like this all night, and I feel like that is something that most people maybe never learn, or they don't learn until they're in a work environment as an adult. And I think it's such a valuable mental model. Do you feel that you got that from Acton?
Certainly parts of it. I think when you talk about decision making, especially, and evaluating choices, a lot of that goes back to our Socratic discussions, our SIB discussions, right? For pretty much the last 10 years, been faced with those, would you rather do this or would you rather do that, almost every single day, and then defend your point. So it's certainly a skill that's been built up over time. And I think I'm a lot better for it. I think the decision making and ability to weigh consequences. It's not only is it Socratic discussions, but it's just everyday life in Acton, right? When you have core skills and you think, what core skill am I going to work on? How hard am I going to work? And like in middle school, I talked about failing, falling behind, learned that when I just play leads to a bad result. And now I'm behind and I have to work over the summer. So then I can kind of course correct that, and yeah, really, really improve my decision making.
So I love that you're talking about when you talked about your middle school and that you kind of, I can't remember, like you started strong and then you kind of fell back and stuff. Like, were your parents like, what are you doing? Get back on track. You better be doing your core skills. I think sometimes people don't understand the freedom and responsibility aspects of Acton. Will you talk a little bit more about what happens when an Acton Eagle or hero is falling behind or chooses to rush ahead? Like talk about that a little bit. Tell parents about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for my mom at least, I wasn't very upfront with her. I don't think I concealed it in every way imaginable um, until able to get myself back on track. And another thing I'll add about middle school is, and this is specific to our campus, but I believe applies to all of them, is everyone fell behind at some point in middle school across the board, especially in that first year, because you do just want to talk, you do just want to avoid the hard things. And I was talking with Jeff Sandifer about this, and that really is the point of middle school. It's the test zone, the place to work out all the kinks and errors, right? Because you'd rather fail in sixth grade, right? Get a lower grade or fall behind versus in college versus at 25. And then you take those lessons and you're ready to go in launchpad. So I think it happens across the board. You just want to make sure it's not prolonged, right? Like 2 years, 3 years. That's where it becomes more questionable when there's no motivation to come out of that. But I would say to trust the process within the short term, right? Within a month, within 2 months, 3 months, because it is natural to have to make that decision, to have that failure, right? Acting promises. They say we're promise to let the kid fail freely, cheaply, often. So it really is the Acton model at work, and then they'll come back stronger from that. From what I've seen, pretty easily catch up, and then be a stronger learner from that experience.
And what do you think is the risk if someone is never allowed to fail?
Someone's never allowed to fail. Well, probably just builds up the catastrophe that will be that first failure, right? It makes it a lot worse when, again, and you see this actually in a lot of college students who haven't been allowed to fail for their entire life, and then that first year they're in college now given all this freedom and responsibility, and it goes very, very poorly for them, and miss tests, miss grades, and that's just a lot more detrimental than sixth grade at Acton. For some, it's worse in the workplace. So I think it's just much more potent than at Acton. And also, you don't know how to come back from that as much, right? Resiliency, perseverance, very big words at Acton.
Yeah, they sure are. So shifting a little bit, when I hear River Tompkins had an apprenticeship at Elon Musk's SpaceX, my mind is blown. Will you tell us a little bit, how did you get that apprenticeship and what was it like?
Yeah, yeah. So it was, it started out with our campus partnering with another campus there. And in a similar way that over the last 2 years, I've guided or consulted at Actons around, I was consulting at one there, helping them out. And then through networking, right? Because it was very close to SpaceX, right? So a lot of the parents worked there, worked at SpaceX. So through meeting the parents, through networking, I said, you have a very interesting job, very cool job. Really like to shadow you, learn what you do, that kind of thing. And as a result, was able to spend what I went down to. It's in South Padre, Texas, right on the Mexican Texas border. Basically, a whole town solely dedicated to SpaceX, building rockets. And I went down there twice for a total of 3 weeks, living down there. Being immersed in the future, and it was a very cool experience.
Fantastic. What a cool experience. I'm so happy that you had that. So, so great. I would love to open this up for parents who would like to ask River specific questions. Please put them in the chat, and then Carmen's going to call those out to River so that he can answer parents or Eagles or prospective parents, anyone on the call. What questions do you have for River tonight?
Andrea says, wait a minute. What role did your fellow travelers play during your journey at Acton?
Hmm, it's a good question. It certainly changed over time, right? Elementary was just friends and the energy was kind of contagious, right? They were excited about something, so I became excited about something. Middle school, I think it was learning how to place boundaries between myself and other learners, especially in relation to core skills, understanding, hey, these are my friends. And when I sit near them, I just talk and I'm not focused. So maybe during core skills, I shouldn't sit next to them. That was a very, very important lesson to learn. And then I think high school Launchpad is really where the most impact occurred, especially when I was younger, right? So in my first year of high school, my second year of high school, absolute biggest impact came from seniors that we had. So people in the final year, right? I talked about how freshman year I was kind of at that status quo, just kind of treading water. And then sophomore year had that big jump to trying to do all the core skills I could. And I attribute the majority of that to seeing the older launch padders, right? They were very motivated, always hustling, and I kind of saw the position they were in, wanted to make my position better. So I think I've ultimately gained the most from just being around people that are older than me, and that always gave me perspective.
Thank you. Um, I want to call that out about, I really noticed that in our middle school too, is that, and actually, I want to say in our discovery studio as well. Like, I've really seen the last couple of years, our discovery studio learn those skills of being like, you're my friend, but I've got to sit over here because I want to reach my goals. And I think that's something that is underappreciated as a skill for how to say, not right now. I need to focus on my work. First of all, being able to do it. And second of all, being able to receive that message from your friend. And I think that's all part of like the building of the character and the ability to set boundaries and the ability to receive feedback that makes Acton learners so special. Any more questions?
Yeah. Um, Natalia Castillo. She says, from athlete related to athlete, I am a full-time basketball player. I train every day, 3, 4 hours. What are your advices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was athletic, but never that athletic, never that committed to a sport. We have a lot of people at our campus that are athletic, going on to play sports in college or playing at a very high level in club. And let's see, I think, well, you have to be very intentional with your time at school, right? And I've noticed that those people who literally have practice every single day, um, usually tend to be the most focused during core skills because they don't have time after school as much to work on Acton. So, they're very intentional to have a goal, and we kind of all respect that and understand that. Um, they also make Acton work for their schedule. I've noticed sometimes they'll adapt the Acton schedule to better fit their practices or help for a tournament and overall just give them an advantage in athletics. So I found Acton to be very good for athletics.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, Andrea Gomez. How has your parents' trust in you helped you grow more confident in your decisions during your journey, even when you fail?
That's a very good question. I think, I mean, it certainly helps, right, to have confidence placed in you and instantly gives you confidence, right? The idea that this person who I respect my parents a lot, and most kids look up to their parents. So the idea that they think you're able to achieve it transmits onto you, and I think imbues you with a lot of ability and independence to get something done. I think with my mom especially, I had a challenge with going above and beyond, right? Especially with assignments, I would just submit an assignment as fast as possible, as quick as possible to get it done without learning or putting in my best effort. And she would often challenge me to do go above and beyond. She said, I know you can do better. I expect more from you. Is this really your best effort? So I think her always kind of understanding that I could do more, was capable of more, inherently pushed me to do more. So definitely, certainly helped a lot.
I think that's a great message for parents. Thank you.
Okay, Marce Retana. Did you witness growth or learning in your parents watching you grow as an Acton Eagle? What was their experience from your opinion?
Hmm. Yeah, I certainly saw my mom grow a lot. She was a big Acton truster at the start. She was one of those people that fell in love with Acton pretty much right away. Heard about the idea. We took a virtual tour since I was living in California at the time, but was pretty set on it, and loved the method, loved the ideology. But I certainly saw her relax more and more, and especially in high school, because she's a mom, she's protective, and all these things. Her natural instinct is to rescue or make sure that I'm entirely okay. But I've seen, especially in high school, I'll just say, I gotta trust the process. Let me do my thing. And now she's much more receptive to that, to the point where, even at 16 or 17, she let me travel on my own, do all this stuff, kind of just figure it out, which would not have been the case earlier.
I love that. Got a lot of really good questions.
Okay, let me see. Cristian Gutierrez. Beyond professional success, which I congratulate you on, what qualities do you think both children and parents need to truly thrive in Acton? And on a personal level, what has made the experience meaningful or fulfilling for you?
Hmm. It's a very good question. Very, very, very well made question. When I think of qualities within Acton learners that set up success, determine success, I think my mind jumped to energy or excitement, possibly motivation, not entirely motivation, but just a wanting to learn, wanting to be a part of the community, um, wanting to understand more about themselves, understand more about the world, just this general curiosity. And that's why Acton strives so much to cultivate a love of learning. Right? That's one of the core promises and a very, very strong principle starting in Sparks, starting in elementary. And I'd say that far surpasses, the mathematical ability you come in with, or your IQ or whatever. I think it's, if you're looking to determine Acton success for a learner, it's the intangible energy, passion. Um, as far as for a parent, this one probably harder to determine. I think not rescuing is always an answer. Not rescuing, and I guess maybe the same kind of energy for the model, right? Learning about the model. I've done a lot of these parent meetings, and oftentimes it's really only 30-40% that do show up to the meeting itself. More you can engage with the owner, more you can engage with the material, certainly going to help. And then he also said, what has made the experience meaningful or fulfilling for you? I think the fulfilling part's certainly the growth, right? Where you start versus where you end is better than the end product. Since they always say the journey is better than the reward, and I think in this case it's true. Seeing progression as far as my abilities, my confidence, the position I'm in, just seeing how that's so drastically changed is a very, very good feeling.
Okay, this question is from an eagle, Raquel Ingles, and she wants to ask you, how did you feel when you were accepted?
Accepted. Let's see, I was 8 years old at the time. Uh, I remember being pretty excited. I didn't fully understand what acting was, but I I know my mom told me we were gonna go to a school that had no homework and lots of free time. So I was pretty excited. Yeah, I did a video tour. Looked like a really cool place, and yeah, it was sold with the no homework because my previous school had copious amounts.
Okay, another eagle, Maya. How did you know if you were actually learning something deeply or just finishing work?
That's a very good question because that happens very often in which you kind of learn something, you're able to answer the questions or write something, and then a couple days later you have nothing to show for it. I have a very I can relate to that a lot because in math, around middle school, high school, I went very fast through it, just checking them off without taking notes, without learning. And at some point around algebra two, hit a wall where I just could not go farther. I had no foundation in math and had to reset, right? Go back 2 years of math, be very deliberate in my learning, understand the concepts. And that was a very, very good decision for me. I was able to go much farther in math and been very successful in it since then. So I think if you can come back to it a week later, a month later, still be able to do it. If you can explain it to someone else, that's usually a good benchmark. I found that, yeah, when I was trying to explain some math things, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't even name what some symbols were. I just was completely lost. And now I could do it easily. So explaining it to other people, being able to recall it in the future.
Not anymore.
Okay, okay. Those were some really great questions. Um, yeah, I'm just blown away. Thank you, River, so much. This has been so valuable to hear your experience personally. You're very good at articulating it and explaining the journey and the different parts of Acton and how it changes you. I think you've really done a great job in helping people understand Acton even more. Um, and I wanted to sorry, I just saw somebody's comment, which is beautiful, and preempts what I want to do. Before we close, I would love to hear briefly from 3 or 4 parents or learners. So we're going to take the mics off of mute. And I would just love for y'all to say one sentence or one idea, and like, what are you taking away from tonight? Who would love to share? Carms, I can't see everyone. Do you mind calling on people? Oh, there we go. Okay. I think Marce has her hand up.
Yeah, I was so slow in writing, but I had one more question, if I may, and I will throw that sentence, I promise, because I'm taking a lot. Can
Go
I?
ahead. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. River, I was writing it down. You know how all generations have like different challenges and this generational potential fails that we often see trending on. I mean, it changes from generation to generation, but what challenges or maybe potential shortcomings, I don't know, do you think your generation has faced? I mean, you and your generation, and how have you approached them or work to overcome them, and how do you think Acton education has impacted you on that approach? And this is me being a parent trying to also feel more relaxed like your mom did later on.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. 'Cause our generation certainly has its challenges. The first one that comes to mind is attention span, right? We're the first generation to really be growing up just inundated with electronics and entertainment and pretty much everything at all times. And I think that's probably going to have an adverse effect on Acton, if I'm being honest, right? Because we're saying you have to be able to do hard things, learn on your own, and it's difficult to do that if it's harder for you to pay attention. So that's something that parent and kid really have to work on, and build up that ability to focus. So I think that would be the number one challenge. I think that's really more elementary, middle school, and then for high school, our generational challenge is you'd call it like as a culture more wanting to not put any effort, kind of being apathetic, being nonchalant. I'm too cool for school, don't want to do all this stuff. And I think a lot of acting studios have done a good job of repelling that, but it certainly seeps its way in. It certainly caught me at one point of this kind of, just don't want to do anything. So I think for launch padders, that would be the biggest generational challenge.
I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I think for me, I'm taking the challenge to just witness my daughter. And like you said, and I think you repeated quite a couple times, just trust the process, because we do see a result. I mean, we come back to that nervousness or just trying to do more, protect and save, etc. But just taking with me to trust the process. And I love seeing you just talk about your life. And I don't want to call it, I mean, yes, your current success, but you have so much ahead of you. And I love that you talk about so many options, like all of them have something for you. I mean, I'm personally not used to that, in terms of my generation had one goal, and if you did not succeeded there, then it was considered failure. So it gives me really peace for you, and also, uh, I mean, for my daughter in the future, because options and having just pros and cons on each one, and just having that decision making process that you are taking is the exact way to approach life. So I encourage you to keep on doing it, and I'm excited for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Marcy. Who else would like to tell us a takeaway? What are you leaving with tonight? Ingrid?
Um, this is just really short, but it's just really inspiring to see another Eagle from an Acton I've been to. I did an exchange at the Acton that he was at, and I know him personally, but it's just really inspiring to see someone who's done so many amazing things after they left Acton and even during Acton. And it just really makes me believe in every one of my studio members and in myself that Acton is going to prepare me like it did River. And I'm just really glad that I was able to hear his take, like his thoughts and everything on Acton. And, yeah.
Thank you, Ingrid. One more. Who will be brave and tell us what they're taking away tonight? Okay. All right. Well, River, thank you so, so much again for sharing your story with such honesty, such articulation, and such generosity. I really so appreciate you connecting with our community and telling them about your journey. Thank you to all of our families and our Eagles and our staff and our prospective families for being here and for asking the deeper question with us. Not only where will my child go next after Acton, but who is my child becoming as a hero and as a person? That's the question at the heart of Acton. And we're so grateful to be walking that journey with you now or in the future. And I really hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.